Good morning. So on Tuesday, I left you with a little bit of a cliffhanger, the mysterious phone call. So just to get into that a little bit more detail, you know that when I noticed that during this, according to the doctor's office, this big, long educational office visit that we were being overbilled for, that my husband had had all this great educational and thorough exam, and yet when I got the copy of the lab results, I noticed that there was something there that wasn't mentioned during this big, long educational visit that my husband actually never had. So when I called, the nurse had called me back already to discuss this B12 issue. And she said that she had talked to the doctor, and the doctor said no big deal. And it really, the numbers weren't that high. The lab was finicky. Some labs are finicky. Some labs will flag it and they won't. It's a subjective thing. But he wasn't concerned. So I thought that was over. So imagine my shock on Thursday, January the 31st. See, I remember all this. Because it was such a weird day. First of all, we had had a huge snowstorm that day. All the schools were closed. And around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I see that I have a message on my phone. My phone had been turned off. And the message was from Dr. Cotter, my husband's doctor. And he said he was really, he understood I had some concerns and would I give him a call back. Now at this point, and again, this was back in January, but my husband already, because of what I had found out about the care he didn't get as being diagnosed as a diabetic, no glucometer, no dietary instructions, no referral to a dietitian, nothing. He had already decided to look for a new doctor. And he was already had a recommendation from a friend of ours. And so I texted my husband. I said, should I call him back? And my husband said, don't bother. I'm not going back to him anyway. Don't call him back. So I didn't. 45 minutes later, he called me back. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have never, first of all, because I'm a very healthy person for the most part, I have never actually had an actual doctor, the doctor, call me on the phone. And I think most of you will agree, if the doctor actually calls you, it's usually with really bad news, like you're dying. Usually the nurse calls or someone from the office calls and says, oh, your test results are back, you're fine, see you next year. So for this doctor, the actual real doctor, to call me twice in an hour, boy, he really had something to say. And I'm a curious kind of a gal, so I picked up the phone. Big mistake, huge. And it had repercussions that even I at the time did not realize for several days. But I got it eventually. So the first question I asked, of course, was because I knew that this doctor, from the reviews on their website from other patients, in fact, I found one of the people who wrote a review and seemed very similar to our experience with this family practice. And I found him. I found him on Facebook and I messaged him. And he said, yep, that's me. And yep, that happened. And I'm so sorry this is happening to you. So I knew I wasn't the only one of these patients from this office practice, this family practice, that had experienced this since UPMC Pinnacle had bought them out. They used to be a very reputable family practice. Everybody loved them until they became corporate. And then the care they gave started to change. So pick up the phone, and the doctor starts out. First I said, because I know you overbill people, I said, I'm not getting billed for this phone call, am I? And he was taken aback. He said, oh no, that would be illegal. So there's a lesson for all of you right there. If your doctor calls you on the phone, they cannot bill you for it. Okay? They cannot do that. It is illegal. And it's interesting that he knows that, but he knew it. Okay? I said, okay, I just checking because, it seems like we get billed for every second with your office. And I said, by the way, I just want to let you know that dealing with your staff over the last several weeks has not been pleasant. And they represent you. You used to have a good reputation. My husband liked you. But when your staff doesn't respect me, doesn't return my calls, and doesn't treat me with respect, and then lies to my insurance company, I don't appreciate that. And then he said, well, I don't know anything about billing. That's a quote. I don't know anything about billing. I said, well, sir, you're the one, with all due respect, who wrote the codes. You coded my husband's exam and his blood work. And that's the end of it. And then he said, well, the reason I called is that you're concerned about the B12. Well, I will be happy to run a specific B12 test on your husband when he comes back to see me in March. And I invite you to come with him. I love it when the spouse comes in too. I felt like saying, yeah, double billing, because there's two of us. So basically, that was the end of the conversation. He said, it's not a big thing. It's nothing to worry about. And we'll see you guys in March. Hope you come along. I said, well, I appreciate the call. I think you should have a staff meeting about how your staff treats people who call in with concerns or billing issues. He said, well, again, I know nothing about billing, and I'm sorry you had that experience. I will talk to the staff about getting the phone calls returned quicker, blah, blah, blah. That was the end of the conversation. Friday, February 1st. Mail. Bill from Salavanti Cotter for $53.80 for the annual exam for December 18th, including, by the way, $4 and something or $6 and something for the act of sticking a needle in my husband's arm to draw blood. Now, you remember, it was an annual physical. Drawing the blood is part of the annual physical and should and usually is covered under the Affordable Care Act. Not with this family practice because of the way he coded the lab work. And the doctor did that on purpose. He knew what he was doing. And part of the blood work that my husband got on December 11th was covered under the Affordable Care Act. But because of the way the doctor coded the lab work, the whole kit and caboodle wasn't covered. It was his fault because of the way he coded. And he had a choice. He didn't have to code it like that. He didn't know that my husband was going to come up diabetic. For all he knew, everything was going to be fine. He hadn't seen the man in 3 years. Obviously, he wasn't running to the doctor or the ER every 10 minutes. Nothing was wrong. Until it was. And that changed everything. So I get the bill. I call the billing department. Now, it used to be before corporations took over these family practices, each office had a billing person in the office. So you called the office number and you asked for the billing person. Not so anymore because it's a corporation. So there is one billing place that's a different phone number, and they don't just cover one office practice. They cover all of them. They do the billing for every practice that UPMC Pinnacle owns in Lancaster. So I get a lovely young woman on the phone, and I say, I got this bill. I don't agree with it. I'm disputing it. And she said, okay, that's fine. I explained the situation again, that it was an annual visit, blah, blah, blah. She said, okay, I will contact the office manager, which is in the doctor's office. I said, well, what is the office manager's name? The office manager's name. I'll contact her. No, that's okay. Again, it was like the office manager's name was a secret. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why won't they give me the office manager's name? But she said, no, I'll shoot her an email and I'll tell her you have a problem. So now I know it's a woman. I got that. It's a she. I said, okay, thank you. She said, I'll get back to you when I hear from the office manager. Monday morning, I get a phone call from the billing girl. She spoke to the office manager, the she, whose name is still yet to be revealed to me, but it will be. And the office manager said, and this is a direct quote, Dr. Cotter spoke with Mrs. Luciano on January 31st and explained the bill to her, and she was okay with it. Huh? What? Wait, was I like in a different Twilight Zone universe when I had this conversation with the doctor on the 31st? Because I don't recall saying I agreed with anything. And I really recall only him saying, I don't know nothing about no billing. So you guys have seen me angry on this show. You have never seen me as angry as I was. You have never seen me that angry. I'm like that chick on The Exorcist. My head is spinning around. I'm spewing split pea soup all over the walls. I am ready to freaking explode. Okay? Because now I get it. I understand the reason for the fucking phone call. It wasn't out of concern for my husband or for my concern for him. It was proof that he spoke with me so that he could lie and say that he explained, he calmed the little woman down about the billing issue. Okay? Are you getting it now? I was having dinner one night, and it was I was having dinner with someone who actually works in the medical field. And when I told her this story, she almost dropped her jaw. Her jaw just was like, huh. You tell this story to anybody, and they realize, first of all, the planning that went into it. Well, she's going to get the bill in a couple of days. She's going to fight it. I need to call her on the phone, have proof that I talked to her on the phone, so I can then say, I talked her down. She understands the billing process now. And here's something else I learned. If you are the spouse of someone and your spouse's doctor calls you claiming to want to discuss your spouse's medical condition, don't answer the phone. I've learned this with my husband's new doctor. The new doctor is awesome. We really like him. I called to ask for a billing code for something with the new doctor. And while Jason did fill out a form saying that they may speak to me with the HIPAA, he wrote, my wife can be informed of anything having to do with my medical care. They got the codes for us that I needed for the insurance company, but they didn't call me. I had called them and said, I need the codes for this. They called my husband because he is the patient. But this other doctor, Dr. Cotter, instead of calling my husband to discuss the lab work that he didn't discuss at the time of my husband's office visit, that was supposed to be so long and educational, he calls me. Right there, red flag. If it's a true medical situation where they want to discuss your spouse's medical conditions or lab results, they're going to call the patient, not the patient's spouse. So that in itself was very unusual. The fact that when I didn't return the call, he only waited 45 minutes and called me back. He was so hot to talk to me, and this was not a situation where it was an emergency, where your husband needs to get to the ER right away. We just found something we missed. No. It was something he wasn't even worried about. This B12 thing. Oh, it's not that high. I'll be happy to give him a specific test in March. Don't worry about it. And by the way, I don't know anything about no billing. And to him, in his little interpretation, that meant I was okay overpaying for an exam that my husband didn't get. This big educational thing. Do you know that my husband has spent out of pocket since this annual exam? Well, first of all, let me show you this. This is the paperwork generated from a 20-minute annual exam at Salavanti Cotter. This includes the appeal that I spent all day writing to report this practice and appeal and let the insurance company know that this practice overbilled and lied about conversations we had, which is why now if I talk to a medical provider on the phone, I record the call so I can prove it. I bet if I had told Dr. Cotter's office that I had a recording of our conversation on the 31st, things might have been a little different. Hey, they record my calls. I now record theirs. I am never going to be in this position again where a doctor lies. And I have advised my husband in the future when he's at the doctor's office to record, at least record, doctor just walked in the room. I'm walking out of the office now. That way you have a proof of how long you spent in the doctor's office. So they can't come back and say they spent more time with you than they did. Take notes. Tell the doctor, I'm here by myself. I want to record your doctor should allow you to record your office visit. Record the visit. That way you have proof of exactly what was talked about. Otherwise, it's you say, doctor says. And unfortunately, in our society, the doctors usually win, like in my case. I spent all day writing that appeal. I appealed the bill, and the insurance company, surprise of all surprises, sided with the doctor. See, it's like an ancestral cult-like relationship. Pharmaceutical companies, medical providers, insurance companies, they're all in it together, and they all stand with a giant wall in front of them, and they all protect each other against us, the patient/customer. We always lose, and they stand together. People say, why would you spend all this time, and it was a lot of time, fighting a $53 bill? It's because all of you out there are also possibly going to be overbilled for something you didn't actually get. And it might be more than $53. It might be in the thousands, like that girl I told you about last week. Went for surgery, in-network hospital. Surgeon works at hospital, not in network. $5,000 bill to remove her appendix. These doctors, and I have another question. Why did I fight the $53 bill? Why did the doctors practice for $53? Why were they so hot? All they had to do was change the code. I had my gynecologist change a code one time that they billed wrong because during my annual pap smear, he found I had a yeast infection. The billing girl coded it wrong. I found out, I made a 5-minute phone call, they recoded it because it was part of my annual exam, and bam, it was covered. I didn't pay a dime. Usually, when you challenge the codes, the doctor will change it. It was $53. But not Salavanti Cotta. They were standing tough. They were not going to change the code, even though I had some very good points. I thought for sure when the insurance company found out that before even talking to my husband, the doctor coded the blood work as general illness instead of preventive annual exam, that would have been a win. And yet it wasn't. And I still don't know why he did that. It was an annual physical. My husband did not say, I feel like crap. I'm coming in. He said, I want my annual exam. The Affordable Care Act supposedly says he can get one. But this family practice said, nope. No one who ever actually ends up being diagnosed with something during an annual exam gets out scot-free. You don't get your free bite at the apple every year. And that's wrong. And it's wrong when they out and out lie. So if you're asking me, why did I fight the $53? I also want to counter with, why did they fight it? It's $53. And it's a patient that would have kept coming back for more overbilling, possibly. Now what's happened is because of the way they treated us, not only am I telling everybody I know this story, I'm going to write a review on their webpage and explain my situation and make sure that other future patients who are thinking about using this practice know what they did to us and to others. And we ended up finding a new doctor. So they lost a patient. I was actually going to become a patient at this office practice. Now I won't. In fact, now I won't even get near a family doctor. It's a waste of time. Because apparently in some family doctors' practices, the only annual exam they will do is one in which there's never anything wrong with you. And that's a waste of my time. It is. It's a waste of my time. If I can't go to the family doctor once a year and say, you know, I've been feeling a little blue, I don't know what's going on, I've been having the acid reflux, if that means I'm going to get overbilled, then why bother? If I have the acid reflux, it's really bothering me, I'll just go to a gastroenterologist. I can do that with my insurance. I don't need a referral. And since it's an ill visit, I'm going to have to pay out of pocket for it till we meet our deductible anyway. So what do I care? I'm going to go to the best specialist that I can find through recommendations from friends who have been there. And I'm going to get treated for what's wrong. I'm not going to go in as a totally healthy person and waste my time just to get my blood pressure checked, listen to my chest, and get my height and weight. That I can all do at home. And I can even test my blood sugar at home now since my husband paid for his own glucometer. Anyone can use that, and I have. And I'm happy to report that I am not a diabetic. My fasting blood sugar in the morning is 96. That's perfection. It's awful. It's awful when you have to worry about this kind of stuff, that doctors are going to lie, that insurance companies are going to side with the doctor when the doctor's in jeopardy. Although I do have one last step I can take. The insurance company, the appeals people, they actually did send me the address of the Pennsylvania Board of Health. It's like a medical licensing place where I could actually report this doctor's practice to the state medical board. My husband really doesn't want me to, but I kind of want to, just to see what happens. Because once again, I have proof that I'm not the only person this has happened to. I got lucky that I didn't get overbilled by thousands. But some people may have. And what's going to happen in the future? They're going to continue to do it as long as they continue to get away with it unchallenged. I also feel very blessed that I actually had the time to fight this, and it was very time consuming. It really was. And they count on that too. They count on their patients / customers being too busy to fight a bill, especially if it's a small bill. I'm sure they were shocked when I kept calling. I'm not going away. And once in a while, the squeaky door, it does get oiled. I have actually won some of the protests I've made. I've sent companies to the Better Business Bureau and got a discount on my next year's bill. So I will continue to fight when I think something isn't correct. I look at every bill we get, I research everything, and if I find something wrong, I say something. And if more of us had the time to do it or took the time to do it, believe me, at some point they would have to stop this practice of overbilling, underdiagnosing, calling patients with an agenda, these mysterious phone calls. I really want to talk to you, Mrs. Luciano. Yeah, I bet you do. Now I know why. It was a real learning experience. Now, I've got one more show on this topic, and this is one that I am basically going to share with you all of the lessons learned through this long experience, this trying experience, this frustrating experience. If I didn't have some kind of a disorder, an agita, I have it now. I have a lot of stress because of this situation, but I'm glad I did it. And I'm going to tell you the lessons I learned. And also, I'm going to tell you something else I learned, which is about lab results and certain diagnoses, and how it always pays to never get too upset too soon. That's for the next show. And I also want to tell you that tomorrow is Good Friday. This is a huge holiday for Christians. and Passover, of course, for the Jewish community. And I do have a special show, an Easter show, so to speak. And it comes from a discussion I had last weekend when we went out to dinner with another couple who are good friends of ours. And it really made me think. And so I'm going to have a special Good Friday show for you tomorrow. Please stay tuned. For now, Political Paula is out.